Please proceed, Member for Bunbury.
I acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Whadjuk people, and pay my respects to elders past and present, and also to the elders of the South West from whom I've learned so much over the 30 years that I've lived in the region. In reading through previous inaugural speeches, including those of many members here today, I have been inspired by the deeply personal stories of those who find themselves in this place. My story will be similar. I come to this moment in my life because of the people of Bunbury who voted for me, because of family, friends and colleagues who supported me, because of the deep love I hold for the South West and Bunbury, and because of the absolute commitment of the WA Labour Party to winning back this seat. Proudly Bunbury, Madam Speaker, that was the theme of my campaign to become a member of this House. The people of Bunbury are proud of the place they live, proud of the contribution they make to our community, and proud of their achievements. Having the opportunity to represent the good folk who live in the communities of Bunbury and Dalyellop is one of the proudest moments of my life. The community overwhelmingly gave me their trust in every ballot box across the electorate. I will return that trust to the best of my ability, but in doing so, I acknowledge the work of my equally passionate predecessor, the Honourable John Castrelli. Bunbury has gone through enormous change. In the mid-1980s, it was an industrial port town. Railway marshalling yards made up most of the city centre, and the view from the city oil storage tanks was extra special, conveniently located next to the water treatment plants. The change started with Labour's Bunbury 2000 programme to transform Bunbury by removing the industrial heartland that was the CBD and replace it with new mixed-use precincts and public open spaces. It was a golden era, with investment in a university campus, a new regional entertainment facility, new industrial land developments, new hotels and office complexes, and a new contemporary passenger train service. The then members for Mitchell and Bunbury, the Honourable David Smith and Phil Smith, and then Deputy Premier Mal Bryce, were a central part of that transformation, and I acknowledge their contribution together with Dr. Ern Mania and many of the civic leaders of the time who shared the vision. Today, Bunbury's future is being driven by people passionate about the area they live in. It is a multicultural city that is embracing diversity and generosity. It has a Pride Festival, Multicultural Day, Diwali Festival, all of which flow into activities throughout the year that celebrate both difference and inclusion. It is a city whose people were creative enough to get out in the middle of the night on a long weekend and install signage inviting traffic heading south to Margaret River to travel via the new scenic route of Bunbury's extensive Cappuccino Strip. The people of Bunbury have gumption, a good old-fashioned Yorkshire term which means to get up and go for it. These are the people who create the climate for growth in new and imaginative ways, and we need to celebrate them. Gumption, such a great word. Bunbury is more than a second city. It is a potential alternative to Perth for investment and population growth as Perth increasingly copes with diseconomies of scale. Find yourself stuck in a freeway traffic jam and Bunbury starts to look pretty good as a desirable place to live. It is a city that has great potential to grow international tourism and be at the forefront of emerging technologies and new industries. Bunbury was the first regional community to achieve gigabyte bandwidth in the CBD and then start using it to drive new industry development. But for all that potential, Bunbury is a city that is suffering as a consequence of the slowdown in Western Australia. And many people and small businesses are doing it tough. Madam Acting Speaker, Bunbury needed a plan for jobs. The government's plan for Bunbury has simple objectives. Firstly, build jobs through renewed focus on Bunbury's competitive advantages in manufacturing capability, the port, tourism, agriculture, mineral processing, and the new emerging digital and creative industries. Secondly, restore our education and training capability with a focus on supporting teachers in the classroom and skilling for the future, building skills that allow our kids to adapt to a changing world and enabling people to transition to new opportunities as old world jobs disappear. As we know, Madam Acting Speaker, old world jobs are disappearing at a much faster rate than our ability to create the jobs of the future. And as a consequence, investment in education has never been so important. Thirdly, expand our health services to meet the growing needs of our population by dealing with chronic shortages of beds at the Bunbury Regional Hospital and open up new opportunities for specialist service delivery. Fourthly, invest in our transport connectivity for people, freight and data so that transport does not remain a constraint on growth. And importantly, improve the quality of life through sport, culture and the arts and recreation so that our community has a vibrancy that makes people want to be there. It is a plan that sees Bunbury's port taking a greater role in the state freight task in order to promote new investment in transport logistics and port-related manufacturing industry. Bunbury Port has enormous potential for import and export of manufactured product as well as bulk exports. Madam Acting Speaker, when it comes to social infrastructure, Bunbury has been at the back of the queue for new investment in so many areas: social housing, mental health services, drug addiction services, recreational and sporting facilities, hospital beds and our schools. In my door knocking, I found many people in Department of Housing homes waiting for basic home maintenance to address damp, mould and leaks. In Dalyellop, I found many young families, but a lack of basic family support networks that builds community so that young parents ended up isolated in their own homes. People worried about friends or relatives with severe mental health problems, still waiting for a step-up, step-down facility that was promised and then forgotten in 2013. And when it comes to transport, the Australian passenger rail service operates more often as a bus link than a train link. It is an urgent need of renewal as a contemporary passenger rail service. Madam Acting Speaker, Bunbury and Dalyellop are also next to some of the nation's most important biodiversity hotspots. The proposed Preston to Ocean Regional Park has a potential to be a fantastic nature experience, but weed infestation and lack of resources for management are threatening the very basis of the park. But it too has been at the back of the queue. My vision for Bunbury is simple: a place where you can have a career, build a home, have access to good quality education and healthcare in a place that you love. A city that has a strong commitment to the arts and culture as a basis for generating shared understanding, and a place where people can get together and enjoy everything from music and art in the streets through to weekend sport. And central to this vision is a city that embraces its Noongar heritage and Noongar people and celebrates the fact that today we share a rich culture. The Bunbury Plan will take up where Bunbury 2000 left off and will be implemented with the community. It will position Bunbury as an alternative West Australian destination for people and industry, and it will send a clear signal for investment. But most importantly, it is a plan for the future that puts people first. But life is not happy for everyone, Madam Acting Speaker. Bunbury is increasingly confronted with problems such as homelessness. How can civilised cities accept this as part of the background city noise? How can we continue to step around the person sitting on the pavement and not believe that we should have appropriate and effective options for people to break the cycle? If prosperity and jobs are goals of government, then equally we must build in inclusiveness and fairness and be responsive to happiness. This means addressing domestic violence, poverty, the protection of children, community safety, drug addiction, mental health, and it also means a fair go for people living with disability. But we need to do this in partnership with a strong non-government sector and the community. Over the past 8 years, the non-government sector has been subjected to competitive tendering and short-term contracts. Competitive contracting reflects a dismal lack of understanding about how to build local volunteerism and local capability. More frequently, we are seeing eastern states organisations with slick tender presentations and no local knowledge win tenders for services and close down local providers. I have no doubt this drove a significant part of the mood for change in the electorate of Bunbury. I will be looking for a new deal for our non-government and voluntary sector based on buy local principles that serves to build our local capability and volunteerism. We need partnerships, not purchasing tenders. Mutual obligation, not contract management. Long-term funding certainty, not 12-month agreements continually rolled over at the last minute. If we build the strength of our voluntary and non-government organisations through effective partnerships and a commitment to social enterprise, we will reduce long-run costs to government across a range of portfolios, from health to housing to police, and have a happier and healthier community. Mr. Speaker, Madam Acting Speaker, before I leave this topic, I want to draw the attention of the House to the needs of the aged. During my campaign, I discovered many people are caring for high-need elderly parents, just as Helen and I do at home. Bunbury's aged population is going to increase significantly, and as people live longer and require more services, this will place more demand on carers and service providers. Although aged care is a Commonwealth responsibility, I will promote the needs of both carers and the aged to achieve healthy and active ageing and appropriate care during people's final years. Madam Acting Speaker, prior to entering this place, I had a long career in the public service. From Wyndham to Albany and Bunbury to Kalgoorlie, I started out in 1981 heading to Mora with the keys to a Holden Kingswood in one hand and a copy of the Child Welfare Act in the other. I finished my career as the head of the South West Development Commission in July 2017. The Kingswood was long gone, but in its place a rich tapestry of experience and an insight developed over many years about social and economic policy and practice across regional Western Australia. I have a special interest in the public sector's future, especially for those people who work in difficult and often isolated circumstances. Increasingly, those people have spoken to me about the devaluing of their skills and abilities as departments become increasingly preoccupied with budget shortfalls, risk avoidance and centralised decision-making. I support this government's approach to public sector reform. It is bold and it will drive change. A combination of the previous government's approach to budget management and efficiency dividends without any strategy to guide them, together with multiple departments that duplicate effort, has driven the need for this government to act. Reducing the number of departments will reduce cost, streamline decision-making and provide a clearer line of sight to outcomes for the community. Together with the Services Priority Review, the reform has a potential to empower staff and create a better basis for local decision-making. It is a welcome change. Madam Acting Speaker, prior to the election, I was proud to campaign to keep Western Power in public ownership. This is an asset that has been developed over 3 generations, and we should hand it on to the next generation better than we found it, fit for purpose and capable of responding to changing energy technology. I do not intend to repeat the arguments for retaining Western Power in public ownership here. Suffice to say, the community of Bunbury and Dalyellop, along with the rest of the state, did not need much convincing. Very few people I spoke with had any faith that privatisation was in Western Australia's interest. This does not mean our energy sector should not change, but changes need to take place in the context of a rational and well thought out energy policy that is firmly linked to manufacturing and industry development, as well as the new industries that will shape our future economy. Madam Acting Speaker, manufacturing and baseload electricity supply are interlinked. You cannot have one without the other, and both are vital to our state's future. A strong manufacturing sector needs access to reliable baseload supply. We do need to transition our energy mix, but we need to use sound engineering principles in a manner that builds system reliability while reducing emissions. Madam Acting Speaker, I want to acknowledge the men and women from the Australian Youth Services Union and the Electrical Trades Union who campaigned to save Western Power. They took their argument to the community in a respectful manner and the community listened. They have a lot of knowledge and experience to contribute to the energy debate, and in the transition to new technologies, all they are seeking is a fair deal for their members in managing the transition. There are many people who brought me to this point in time. I firstly want to acknowledge the campaign leadership group of John Whitelaw, Sonia Dye and Tom Palmer, together with Tom French, an incredibly creative, energetic and passionate group of people who lifted me when I was down and smacked me down when I was too excited. Yes, Madam Acting Speaker, I do occasionally get excited. May I please request an extension?
Extension granted.
Lenda O'Shalem, who initially directed my campaign, always had faith that we would succeed, and from whom I have learned so much about modern campaigning, and Patrick Gorman, clinically insightful and great to have on your own team. I'm very grateful to you both. My political mentor, the Honourable Mal Bryce, whose wisdom over many years has helped to shape my thinking about questions of our collective future, and in the last year has provided considerable insight on the role of a parish politician, not to mention regular inspections of my shoes during door knocking. My thanks go to Gordon Hill, Tony Booty and David and Treslyn Smith, who have extended their friendship and support to me on so many occasions, and to the wonderful volunteers from southwest branches of the Labour Party, especially the Bunbury branch, as well as many community volunteers. I also thank the Honourable Alana McTiernan, an incredible campaigner, Tim Hammond, the Honourable Rita Safiotti, the Honourable Sue Ellery and the Honourable Steve Dawson. I would also like to thank the members of the Australian Services Union, the Australian Manufacturing Workers Union, the Electrical Trades Union, United Voice and the Prison Officers Union, who provided immense support right through the campaign. These were members who work right across our community and wanted to dedicate their time and effort to build a better future. David Kerr, a special friend whose immense contribution to Bunbury in the Southwest deserves acknowledgement in this House, and Jan Tierney, whose good humour put new life into door knocking. David and Jan will be lifelong friends. I also thank the Premier, the Honourable Mark McGowan, whom I first met when he was a new, slightly nervous Minister for the Southwest, and I was a slightly anxious CEO. I was confident he had not read Yes Minister, so I thought there was a chance I might have the upper hand. That thought, Madam Acting Speaker, lasted all of a nanosecond. He was a fantastic minister, and I am immensely honoured to be part of his team today. Madam Acting Speaker, I came to Western Australia in 1971 as a 14-year-old boy looking for a new future. I had left a family that had gone its separate ways, and I had not attended school for a number of years. I had no idea what the future held, but I was sensible enough to take an opportunity when it was offered. I joined my brother Tony and his wife Anne, who provided stability, support and a home, and I learned just how special growing up in a country community can be. I'm not quite sure they quite knew what they were taking on, but they gave me a fresh start, and I'm forever grateful for that. I went back to school firstly in Manjimup and then Collie, which will appeal to the member for Collie. It was a shock to wear a school uniform again, but I owe a great debt to the teachers of those schools for their support and dedication in making up the lost years of my education. Their example has stayed with me throughout my life and provided a foundation for the person I have become, and it drives my belief in the public school system. For those of you in this House who have a teaching background, you have my admiration. I was lucky enough to enter university in 1974 following the Whitlam government's university reforms that made university education accessible. I and many others remember Gough Whitlam for that great and memorable change in Australia's values that opened university access to everyday people. My education has enabled me to have a career that has taken me all over Western Australia and overseas. I have met and worked with so many people from all walks of life and learned so much. It has taught me that relationships are the most important thing that we have and that everybody has their own story to tell. Perhaps most importantly, it has taught me that acceptance of our shared humanity and the importance of diversity are the most important. Western Australia is a land that has reached out to me as a migrant from England, and I'm very grateful for it. I owe a great debt to my brother Vic. He's always been there in the background with advice, guidance, good humour, and a sense of fun. I'm blessed to have him as a brother. And most importantly, in this House, before my fellow parliamentarians, I thank my wife Helen and our 3 sons, Alan, Daniel and David. Together they set an example that I can only aspire to, not only in what they do, but the people they are. In closing, I remember the remarks of the Honourable David Templeman introducing the class of 2017 to Parliament when he warned us to be careful about our address in reply. In a voice full of doom that can only be conveyed by the member for Mandurah, he told us it will be the first reference used when the time comes for condolence motions. In anticipation of what is hopefully a far-off event, I intend to have a very good time in this House, have fun, and be the best I possibly can be in representing the proud people of Bunbury.
Congratulations, Don.
Fantastic. Good on you, mate. Well done. Well done, Don. Great work.
That's great.
Yeah.